Good evening. Welcome to the October 1st, 2024 Town Council meeting. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call.
Chairperson Phillips, Councilor Sims, Councilor Wildacross. Here. Councilor Pratt,
Present.
Councilor Gagnon, Councilor Lavoy,
Present.
Councilor Siegel.
Present.
Just as a heads up, I'm just filling in for Councilor Phillips until she gets here. I am not Councilor Phillips, just so everybody knows. Next, we'll move on to the acceptance of the minutes of the September 3rd regular Town Council meeting and the September 3rd special Town Council meeting and the September 17th special Town Council meeting. Is there? So moved.
Second.
Second by Lavoy. Any amendments, changes? Councilor Siegel?
Thank you. On the special meeting minutes from September 3rd, during the roll call, my last name is spelled incorrectly. It is I before E. If we could just have that small
We'll
change.
make the adjustment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, with that said, any more amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor? 5 yeas. All right, next we will move on to open public communications. This is a time for anyone to speak for an item that is not on the agenda. So again, if you want to speak on anything that is not on the agenda, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record. And we're going to set this to 3 minutes tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Robbins. I live on 7-1 Queen Street in Gorham. I would like to tell you about an incident that occurred at my home and my response to that incident. Since I live relatively close to the Brickyard Quarry, I'm on the list for receiving notification from Maine Blasting for the date and time a blast is going to occur. I did receive a phone call from Maine Blasting that a blast would occur on Shaw Brothers property Friday, September 6th at 11:30. We also had one today. On Friday, September 6th at 11:30, we did hear and experience a blast at our home, which included a loud sound and house shaking. I was heading out to work at the exact same time as the blast, and as I walked outside my home, I saw a cloud of dust coming down the street from the quarry end to the street to Gray Road. I drove through the cloud and came out of the cloud as I approached Gray Road. I was concerned about what the cloud consisted of and how it was affecting my health as I was breathing this dust from the quarry blast. The following Monday, September 9th, I called Shaw Brothers to express my concern. I relayed my experience with the blast the previous Friday and the resulting dust cloud and asked if Shaw Brothers knew what the dust cloud consisted of. I was told that Shaw Brothers was not responsible for what happens as a result of the blasting. I was directed to call Maine Blasting to ask them. I asked if Shaw Brothers was doing any air quality monitoring of the blast that caused the dust storm to float down my Queen Street. He again reiterated that Shaw Brothers was not responsible for what occurs during blasting. I called Maine Blasting and left a message for Chris in the safety department. I'm still waiting for a return phone call. I'm left wondering who is responsible for the after effects of blasting that occurs on their property, the property owner or the blasting company. I called the town of Gorham to express my concerns and spoke to Jessica Hughes, who left a message for the code enforcement officer. He did call me back and left me a message. He said he reached out to Danny Shaw and asked him to contact me. Does the city of Gorham have anyone monitoring the air quality of these quarry blasts? Mr. Shaw did come to my home to talk to me that week. We had a conversation in which he expressed his views and I expressed my concerns. He was not able to answer my questions about the composition of the dust cloud that came down my street. He told me the dust was 100% not harmful. I prefer to deal with data. She's going to continue. State your name and
I
address.
continue. I'm Brianna Meister. I live at 71 Queen Street as well. I live with my parents and my young children. And just to kind of preface this, there was a blast today, and this was the first time I've had dust actually in my house. There was a layer of dust. That's never happened before. So in my children's bedroom. So this is a little bit emotional to me because there's things that we can do to help with this, and we're ignoring those and kind of moving to expanding the quarry without any of those. I know it's still in discussion, but it just makes me kind of sad that this is right by my kid's bed, and no one seems to care. I can.
Oh, Danny Shaw.
Let's see, if he could have shown me fact-based evidence on the dust composition based on daily independent monitoring, I might have felt more comfortable with the air quality my family is breathing from quarry blasts. His visit did not ease my concerns, as he did not have facts to show me that would confirm his statement that the air was 100% safe to breathe. Presently, the town council is tasked with the question of whether to allow the expanded property directly across from Queen Street that Shaw Brothers has purchased to be used for quarry blasting. I understand that residents know that the current quarry exists and would be expected to feel, hear, and see the effects from that blasting, since it's an industrial site. I understand that Shaw Brothers is a business, and we're not questioning their ability to run a business. However, I feel that my family's and other neighbors' health and safety need to be addressed as well, especially regarding the possibility that the Shaw Brothers may be given the option of blasting closer to residential areas directly across the street. There's also a school relatively close, and if it's reaching our house, nobody really knows how that's being impacted without more research. On my own initiative, I began speaking to my neighbors about the quarry to make sure everyone was aware of the possible expansion, and have heard stories about cracks in walls, foundations, unexplained sinkholes, furnaces cracking, and general frustration with the quarry and the lack of Gorham Town officials or Shaw Brothers to address their concerns. Mr. Shaw told me that no one has filed a complaint with him, yet I have seen others file folders of correspondence with the Shaw Brothers, but nothing resulting from their efforts. In my opinion, expanding the quarry across the street from residents is unthinkable, especially since we are a town that is under-regulating. There's also a school relatively close, and if it's reaching our house, we're already dealing with the effects of the existing quarry, but to expand the quarry closer into residential areas is beyond my understanding. On my own initiative, I began speaking to my neighbors about the quarry to make sure everyone was aware of the possible expansion, unreasonable to ask that all decisions regarding the existing quarry be postponed until data could be gathered concerning the emissions that are coming from the quarry. We currently have no such data to inform decisions. Town council could request that data be gathered prior to making any decisions about the quarry expansion. As a citizen of Gorham, I would like to be able to say that we live in a town that takes the health concerns of its citizens seriously. People are being exposed to the unidentified emissions from the blasting, homes being subjected to shaking foundations, and we have yet to discover what is happening with our water sources. I'm wondering who is listening to our concerns, who is watching out for our health and the health of the next generation of residents, our children and grandchildren, who is going to take charge of this situation and begin making some decisions and regulations in regards to the underregulated quarries in Gorham, so that we can all enjoy the quality of life that we deserve. Our health depends on this happening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Charlie Hamblin. I live in Gorham. I'm here to talk about the Brickyard Quarry, talking fast because I only got 3 minutes here. If you happen to visit the Rock Row Quarry in Westbrook, it appears closed. It's surrounded by a shopping mall, but if you look, there's 2 chain-link fences surrounding the closed quarry, and on the bottom of it, it's green. The quarry is filled with green, algae-covered water caused by too little oxygen. The shopping mall hides the quarry from view, but you can imagine the smell, drowned wildlife, and trash that fills the bottom of this quarry. The Brickyard Quarry owners in Gorham have stood here and said there's 75 years of rock to be quarried off Mosier Road. What happens then? Will it too become a green, algae-laden pond emitting carbon dioxide, a death trap for animals, and an attractive nuisance to teenagers? No reclamation plan has been filed with the town. It seems the situation at Rock Row is doomed to be repeated in Gorham. I propose a different outcome for Gorham than what we see in Westbrook today. We should look toward the future and consider our kids and grandkids rather than focusing on the short term. Instead of the quarry owners consuming an additional 50 acres of undeveloped land for more quarry, imagine if they donated this land to the town of Gorham for future generations. I will match their donation acre for acre. If completed, Gorham would have 100 acres of outdoor recreation space and natural habitat within 2 miles of the town center. Currently, Gorham has roughly 185 acres of land conserved by the Presumpscot Land Trust. The largest property is less than 40 acres. This is less than 1% of total land area in the town, and one of the fastest growing towns in the state. Undeveloped land is fast disappearing, priceless resource. But with this proposal, we can make a brighter future for our community and our children. My 50 acres are full of bike trails and wildlife. The 50 acres owned by the quarry owners is a beautiful field filled with wildflowers and wildlife. It would be a wonderful place for community flower and vegetable gardens. Perhaps providing food for local food pantries. Nearby neighborhoods could have a place to walk and introduce their children to nature. Gorham would be a destination for outdoor enthusiasts, and people would have more places to spend time outdoors, a unique 100-acre gift to Gorham for future generations. With your support, we can make this vision a reality. In 75 acres or so, the existing quarry will be exhausted and could be reclaimed as an addition to the 100-acre recreation habitat. It will take time, could eventually take on the character of the surrounding landscape and make the corridor even more special to the community. We could also persuade other citizens to donate land and perhaps gain access to the Presumpscot River from this 100 acres. This idea opens many ideas. Let's open them together. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishes to speak, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, we will close the public communications. And we'll move on to councillor communications, and I'll start all the way to my right with Councillor Sims.
Thank you. I want to thank the members of our Fiscal Sustainability Committee for their work.
Luke,
We had another productive.
can you speak into the mic? I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Is this one on?
Yeah, you gotta have it close.
All right, cool. It's working.
Thank you. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
All right. I'll start over. I want to thank the members of our Fiscal Sustainability Committee. We had another productive meeting last week, and our next meeting is set for Monday, October the 28th. We're getting into more specific definitions of the problems, along with solutions that we can recommend to our town council and school committee moving forward. I value the diversity of perspectives we've got from our many community volunteers on this committee, and I look forward to continuing the work with the group. I'd also like to just share one of my observations thus far from what I've learned on the Fiscal Sustainability Committee. I think it is crucial for both our town leaders as well as our community as a whole to recognize that the approaches we have been taking as a town over the past few decades have led us to where we are today and the challenges that we currently face. Our town's approach to land use, transportation, economic development, and also how we've attempted to restrict housing development, particularly in and around our village. Our current budget challenges are driven by decisions that our town has made over the past few decades. And I want to make clear that I mean no disrespect to anyone who has come before me. I trust that my predecessors did the very best they could for our town with the information they had available to them at the time. Many towns across our country have fallen into similar traps as we are experiencing here in Gorham. And it's easy for me to stand up here and criticize past decisions. But if we are serious about wanting to change the outcomes that we are struggling with, we have to be willing to change our approach on these critical issues. Ultimately, our budget challenges are a math problem. Our operating costs will continue to grow. That is an inconvenient truth. And we must certainly continue minimizing those increases. But to better address these rising costs, we have to be willing to promote development that generates more property tax revenue than it costs our town to service. At the most basic level, that is the definition of smart growth. Growth that generates positive cash flow for our town budget to thereby ease the tax burden on our existing homeowners. That is the only way to effectively mitigate our property tax challenges in the long term. The problem is our current policies have disincentivized and in some ways practically outlawed that type of development. So I'll stop there for now, but I look forward to continuing these conversations with the community, and thank you again to the Fiscal Sustainability Committee. I encourage all citizens to follow along with the work that we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Siegel.
Thank you, Vice Chair Pratt. first of all, Councilor Sims, that was great. That was fantastic. Thanks. I just want to update the public on the ordinance committee meeting. We had an incredibly productive ordinance committee meeting, and I'm super impressed with our ability to do so, and the town staff and everyone. It was great. We discussed our wastewater ordinance, talking about allowing private clustered wastewater systems. We reviewed building heights and setbacks in terms of increasing economic development opportunities. Just very short, the larger the building, the more it is valued, thus the more property tax it brings. By allowing for greater buildable lots, we can allow for better businesses that have larger buildings that then get taxed more. It's one of these, one of so many things that we're working on to help right our, property tax burden. We also had a look at our parking ordinances once again, and we have done a large and comprehensive look at all of our parking ordinances, and those have gone to the planning board to look at, and then will come back to us. It was a very large look. Then finally, we discussed affordable housing requirements as well, which has gone to the planning board. And we started to look at the fire suppression system ordinance around single-family homes and other quality of life changes that we can make. And lastly, we looked at our public and private road standards, and that is also moving along. These are all things that just over the years need to be looked at every once in a while. Our next ordinance committee meeting, as always, it's on the fourth Thursday of the month. However, I will note that we typically change it as ordinance, as committee members change in and out, and by the next time there will be new counselors. But as of right now, we are meeting November 28th at 10 a.m. in conference room A. But I encourage you to please look at the town website closer in case that does change. And please note what we'll be discussing. We'll be looking at our land use and development code to better define greenhouses and hoop houses. We'll be looking at the McClellan House conditional zoning district, one very specific lot in the village here that would like to allow for mixed use. We'll also be looking at the growth management ordinance in terms of allowing exemptions for smaller dwelling units. And assuming the documentation is given to staff in time and there's enough to work on there, we will also be discussing the contract zone for the Brickyard Quarry. I believe that is all. Thank you for listening.
Councilor Lavoie.
I'll keep it brief. Finance Committee met last month, and we had a very productive meeting. Some of the things we worked on is on the agenda for tonight, and you will hear about them. That's it.
Thank you. Councilor Wilder Cross.
My turn. I'll try to
Yes.
be short, too.
All right.
I might not. No, I wanted to say kudos to the Gorham Village Alliance for a very successful Art on South that happened a month ago. When I was there, anyways, it was very busy, and the weather couldn't have been more perfect. I don't know who was in charge of the weather, but they did the best job yet. And during the meeting that I had with them, believe it or not, the plans are already in the works for next year. So if you missed it this year, you can look forward to it next year. The Metro Region Coalition of GPCOG met on September 10th. And it was a great meeting. The first meeting of the year that happens in September is usually one of kind of where we exchange either ideas or we talk about problems that the mutual members have. One of the good things that we did, I think it was good anyways, we added the municipalities of Cumberland, Freeport, and Yarmouth to the coalition. So every time we add a municipality, we get more strength in purchasing and working as a group. It's a good thing. We spent some time talking about each community's priorities and what's going on in each particular municipality. And I think one of the things that's most interesting is that we all share similar challenges. I mean, none of us is unique. When we started talking about it, everybody's dealing with housing. Everybody's dealing with traffic, taxes, aging municipal buildings and school buildings. Right? Every single one of our fellow municipalities is dealing with the same problem, so it's not just us. Another one that came up was that there's an overabundance of bond referendums that are beginning to wear people down. And I said, so true is that. And we even talked about invasive plants. That would have made Ben Hartwell's heart warm. Finally, on that meeting, the Department of Economic and Community Development has established the Housing Opportunity Program. It offers grants that encourage development of additional housing. A new round is going to be starting sometime this fall. And I can't end my last report without reminding people that New Year's Eve is coming. And it's going to be the best one yet. The committee has really put together a wonderful program. And it's fun for me because I've been doing this since the beginning. And every year we come up with new ideas, but we've got a great committee, and we've put on the program several new things for not only families with young kids, but for the adults, all ages. There'll be new kinds of entertainment. But the most exciting thing, as far as I'm concerned, is we're going to have a grand finale laser light show set to music. I mean, how grand is that? So we will not be polluting the air and the area around us with loud noise and leaving icky stuff on the ball field that has to be cleaned up in the spring. So I'm looking forward to it. You can get more information on the website, on the town website, if you get to the New Year Gorham website, and on Facebook. But I say, don't plan anything else for New Year's Eve. It's going to be fun. I'll be there. Thank you. I'm done.
All right, take notes, everybody. This is going to be short. Here we go. All right. It's that magical time of the year when political signs start to blossom from the ground. Just remember, it is a crime to remove said political signs, so please don't tamper with them. I know they're annoying. I know we don't always agree with what's on them, but at the same time, just leave them alone. Don't look at them if you have a problem with them. Just drive right by them, okay? Everything's going to be okay. They'll be removed right after the election, I promise. All right, and then finally, please, please, please donate blood. The blood banks are at an all-time low. With the hurricane and everything else, there's going to be a gigantic need for blood. If you are able and willing, please donate blood. USM's having blood drives. There's one in Westbrook. I think I saw one in Wyndham and Westbrook as well. So please, please, please donate blood. That'll be the last time you hear from me on it, but thank you. And next, we will move on to the town manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Very quick, Public Works will have brush collection days at Public Works 80 Houston Road on the 12th and 26th of this month from 8 to 3. Residents only, no commercial drop-offs. I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off and say that winter sand salt is now available at Public Works. You never know. The Christmas decorations are out at Home Depot, so we got to get ready. And contractor work for pedestrian lighting is happening right now on South Street. It should be a week and a half. They'll be wrapping that up, but they're working around the sidewalks and the pedestrian areas, so please use caution. It'll look nice when it's all done. There'll be a public input and open house session for Gorham's Economic Development Strategy Plan on Tuesday, October 15th from 5:30 to 7:30 here in the council chambers, I believe, and it's a chance for the public to provide input into that master plan, looking at our economic development strategy for the town as a whole. And lastly, absentee ballots are available from the clerk's office or online. and they have already issued a bunch, and I want to thank the clerk's office and all their staff and volunteers ahead of the election. I will thank you after the election, but obviously going to be a busy time for you come November. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the school committee report. Welcome to the podium.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Sarah Perkins, and I'm serving as the chair of the school committee. So I believe you all have a copy of the report. Sorry it's a little longer than usual. I went over onto the back side, but it's an important topic. We'll start with the bond referendum. For anyone looking for information on the upcoming school referendum questions, we have a newly created referendum information page on the gorhamschools.org website. In addition, Superintendent Perry presented information at the recent Candidates Night at Baxter Memorial Library. Thank you to the library and GOCAT teams for making this event possible, and you can view the recording at the GOCAT website. Last week was the high school homecoming week. It was a great week full of spirit days, pep rallies, activities, and of course a homecoming football game. Thank you to everyone that attended and participated to make this week such a special week for our students. We have some community events coming up in order to encourage members of the public who don't normally interact with our schools to come on in and take a look around. Every school in our district will be having an individual event. So far we have 2 in the works. One is a bean supper at Narragansett on Saturday, October 12th from 4 to 6. Our student leaders will be helping to serve meals, and we'll have more information from the students and some presentations planned. And the second one planned so far is at the high school. They'll be hosting a Taste of Nations event on Saturday, November 2nd at 11, highlighting our multilingual students and families. And this is a great opportunity to showcase the variety of cultures represented in Gorham. Moving on to the already thinking about the 25-26 school budget. We've recently launched a thought exchange survey to help us develop budget priorities for the upcoming FY26 budget development process. That survey is available on the gorhamschools.org website, in the latest superintendent blog, and on our Facebook page. In addition, we're hosting our annual Dessert and Discuss meeting on November 14th at 7 p.m. in the high school library to begin determining budget priorities. As usual, all town council members are invited, as well as the public. We are also hoping to, and did in fact, schedule a budget workshop for December 17th with the town council, a joint workshop to kick off the budget cycle. And then lastly, and this was the topic that caused me to go over onto the second page, but I didn't want to cut any of it. We have a new mental health and wellness resource available through the schools. We're pleased to announce a partnership with parentguidance.org, which is free to all district staff, parents, and families. It's a service developed by licensed therapists that provides trusted and specialized courses, professional support, and a safe community to learn how to support our children and get answers to mental health questions. Our hope is that this partnership will give parents a place to go for answers to support and help their children struggling with depression, anxiety, self-harm, bullying, grief, and family strife, just to name a few. Unfortunately, we see this every day in our schools. It also provides tools to form stronger bonds between parents and their children. There are over 50 e-courses free to families, which are led by licensed therapists, as well as an Ask the Therapist section on the website. Again, it's parentguidance.org. It is free and confidential. As part of this partnership, we're going to be offering some scheduled webinars, which we'll call our mental health series. These will take place from October 1st to December 31st. Our first event is scheduled for October 15th. The topic is social media, protecting your children by staying aware and involved. Signups can be found again at gorhamschools.org, as well as our Facebook pages and the superintendent's blog post. Some other upcoming courses will be around child anxiety and helping your children succeed. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none,
No,
have a
thank
great
you.
night.
Thank you.
Public hearing number 1 on item 2024-10-2. Public hearing to hear comments on a proposal to issue a renewal liquor license to Orchard Ridge Farm, 236 Sebago Lake Road, administrative sponsor.
Public hearing is now open. If anybody wishes to speak on this item, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one jumping up from the crowd, we will close the public hearing.
Proposed Order 24-132, order that the Town Council issue a renewal liquor license to Orchard Ridge Farm, 236 Sebago Lake Road.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Sims, seconded by Councilor Lavoy. I take it everything's in order. All the correct staff have checked in on this? Yep. Great. Any comments, questions, concerns? Being none, all those in favor? 5 yeas.
Public hearing number 2 on item 2024-10-3. Public hearing to hear comments on a proposal to issue a renewal liquor license to Sidecar Pub, 7 Railroad Avenue. Administrator sponsored.
The public hearing is now open on this item. Anybody that wishes to speak, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Don't push, don't shove. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing.
Proposed Order 24-133, order that the Town Council issue a renewal liquor license to Sidecar Pub, 7 Railroad Ave.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second by Councilor Lavoy. I see his hand. Any questions, comments, concerns? Again, all the necessary forms and everything are in place. All right, with that said, all those in favor? 5 yeas.
Public hearing number 3 on item 2024-10-4. Public hearing to hear comment on a proposal to issue a renewal medical marijuana license to Austin Demaria, Cush Hours LLC, 36 Bartlett Road, property owned by Jack Weir, administrator sponsored.
Public hearing is now open for this item. If anybody wishes to speak on it, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing.
Proposed Order 24-134, order that the Town Council issue a renewal medical marijuana license to Austin Demaria, Cush Hours LLC, 36 Bartlett Road, property owned by Jack Weir.
Mr. Town Manager?
Motion.
Oh, okay. Sorry, is there a motion on this?
Sure.
Councilor Lavoy, second by Councilor Siegel. All right, now Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I made an administrative error in this. In your council notes, I said that everything was fine. This needs to be contingent upon correcting some issues identified by the fire department, which is attached to your council packet. So some items within the building need to be fixed prior to the issuance of this permit. So I recommend that the council issue it contingent upon correcting those measures.
Do we need to make it, do you believe we need to make an amendment contingent upon?
Yes.
Okay, so is there a motion to make an amendment to make this item contingent upon repairs?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
seconded by Lavoy. Any discussion? All right, so all those in favor of the amendment? 5 yeas. Okay, any discussion on the item itself? As long as the contingencies are in place, and I believe we're all set. All right, so with that said, all those in favor? 5 yeas.
Public hearing number 4 on item 2024-10-5. Public hearing to hear comments on renewal applications for automotive graveyard junkyard permits for the 2024-2025. Administrator sponsored.
All right, public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody that wishes to speak, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing.
Proposed Order 24-135, order that the Town Council issue renewal automobile graveyard junkyard permits for 2024-2025 to the following: Steve Luce, LKQ Corp., Gorham Auto, 192 Narragansett Street; Jim Stone, Casco Federal Credit Union, 393 Ossipee Trail; Gary Nelson, Chet's Auto Sales, 475 Ossipee Trail; Gordon Reichart, Reichardt's Auto Body, 112 Shaw Mills Road; Sean Moody, Moody's co-worker owned, 200 Narragansett Street; and John Dombrowski, Dumbo Enterprises, 86 Longfellow Road.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Wanda Cross. Any discussion on this? No. All right, all those in favor? 5 yeas.
Public hearing number 5 on item 2024-10-6. Public hearing to hear comments on a proposal to amend the town's general assistance ordinance by updating the maximum levels of assistance as required by the state. Administrator sponsor.
All right, public hearing is now open on this item. Anybody that wishes to speak, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing.
Proposed order 24-136, order that the town council amend the town's general assistance ordinance by updating the maximum levels of assistance as required by the state.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Wild, seconded by Councilor Siegel. Mr. Town Manager, do you want to fill us in on this?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. This is a administrative item. You do this as a council every year, and essentially what it does is set the thresholds for various categories for general assistance. So when the general assistance administrator, which we contract with Wyndham for, has an applicant, they are reviewed under these thresholds for income, eligibility, so on and so forth. And again, it's an administrative item you're required to do every year.
Thank you.
We get some of that money back from the state, is that true?
We do, and as you're very much aware, there's always an effort by municipalities to try to get more of that reimbursement, but thus far we've failed to get a higher percentage of that money back.
I think 70%.
Yes, and the municipalities have been shooting for, I believe, 90%. Some of the larger ones get a different ratio. So we get the majority of the money back, but it has grown exponentially in the last 2 or 3 years as far as what we've budgeted.
So is this into our budget that we've approved already, these amounts?
Yeah, it's always a shot in the dark as far as it's a guesstimate on what the need will be, because anybody can come in at any point asking for assistance and we're obligated to pay it. So I think our budget's a little over $100,000. When I first started here, it was closer as far to 30.
Yeah.
So it's been going up, but regardless, we're obligated to pay it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Vice
Councilor
Chair.
Siegel?
To the town manager, I do just want to make a very clear point here. You said anyone that asks for it, we're obligated to give it to them. Anyone that applies and meets all of the application are the ones who get it. We don't just have to give it away.
Well, yes and no. No, I should clarify that. If you come in and you were not in dire straits, you were not starving to death, there's certain situations where we are obligated to pay almost immediately. And those happen from time to time, emergency heating assistance, things like that, food, life safety. But if you're looking for rent assistance, yes, you come in, you fill an application, and it's processed. But those emergency items, which are not the bulk of what we pay out, they fall under the guidelines.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing no one, all those in favor? 5 yeas.
Public hearing number 6 on item 2023-3-7. Public hearing to hear comments on a contract zone for KV Enterprises for the Roby Street subdivision, map 24, lot 19 and 20, map 25, lot 8, map 27, lot 20. Administrator sponsored.
Public hearing is now open for this item. Anybody that wishes to speak, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Owens McCullough. I'm here on behalf of KV Enterprises, who had put forth the contract zone. We met with the council. We've had a lot of discussion over the last year and a half. It went to the planning board. What you have in front of you is sort of the codified contract zone language for the council's consideration tonight. Mr. Mayetta is here with me, so I won't go down all the various attributes of it, but we think we're ready to go forward tonight. If you do have questions, we are here certainly to answer those questions. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dave Walsh, 85 Falcon Crest Drive. Recently I spoke to you about why at the recent planning board meeting I voted against phase 1 of the Roby Street subdivision. In doing so, there were 2 reasons. We talked about this last time, White Birch. You approved White Birch Lane, that was number 1. The second one was the contract zone. I felt that the contract zone is an excellent tool for the community, and it is good for the developer. When I look at this subdivision, it's my personal views, not those of the planning board. There are three ways to approach development. Don't allow it. It's unlikely that it would succeed long-term because, let's face it, this piece of land will likely be developed at some point. We had a meeting earlier today. Councilor Sims is involved. We were talking about the economic development strategic plan. Quite a bit of discussion in there about the need for affordable housing. Will this housing be affordable? Don't know. But we do need more housing stock in town. This is one way to do it. There are two ways to go about allowing a development. Go through the typical subdivision process. Phase 1 was recently approved using that process. Phase 2, 3, and 4 could also follow suit. But I don't feel it's the best way to go. The contract zone tool is a wonderful tool that we have here in the town. The council has power. The planning board can utilize it. What you have before you tonight has been reviewed heavily and edited by the planning board through some public hearings and presented to you. But again, that's the planning board's recommendation. My personal recommendation is that you do approve this as well, because I think it allows for some negotiation with the developer, which is a benefit to the town. Yes, any negotiation that the developer could be asking for some things, but the town also has the ability to ask for things, and there's accountability built into that contract zone. So again, I ask that you approve this and allow it to move forward. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ruth Kelly. I live on New Portland Road. I've sent lots of letters. You're probably getting tired of them. It just seems like if I say I'm against a subdivision and a contract zone, that I'm against development, or it just seems like I get comments or hear comments about that I'm against development and housing, increasing housing. But that's not true. If you're against a subdivision and a contract zone, it just means that, well, for me, I'm against it because it seems like the existing residents who are paying the taxes and so forth have not been considered enough, and their input should be taken into account when it's something of this consequence. I just don't think that's been done enough in this case. Its location, I don't think is good. It's for existing neighborhoods. It'll negatively impact White Birch Lane as well as all the other two access ways. Having 1,000 homes or 1,000 people living behind traditional neighborhoods is just not a good situation for those who have been living in the or surrounding neighborhoods for a long time. And then location is also important. I think there should be a more in-depth wetland study in that area. There's a lot of wetlands that change. The delineation of them changes depending on the time of year that you do the study of them, as well as the climate during that year. They ebb and flow, and they might be bigger and not be a good area for such a high-density subdivision. And another thing is, it just seems like there's been a lot of contract zones lately, and it seems like the basis of the contract zones are changing the zones that were originally there to begin with, that have certain ordinances that have to be followed, and now they no longer have to be followed with contract zones. So it seems like contract zones are being utilized to change the current zoning and ordinances that are there. Wait a second. And also, contract zones are hard to enforce. What are the assurances that residents will have that the contract zone, not recommendations, but the assertions of the contract zone will be enforced? So in general, I am against the contract zone because it will increase the number of houses by 50%. I'm not sure how the passing or not passing of the contract zone tonight will affect other things, but I'm against that in general because increasing number of houses per year will increase the amount of traffic and construction and negative impact to the surrounding neighborhoods. 25 years ago, we were looking for a place to live, and we were really worried about moving to a busy street on New Portland Road because we had 2 small children, and they took them over to the park on White Birch Lane, which was a dead-end road, and they were able to run across the field and without worrying about traffic. And with this subdivision and the extension of White Birch Lane, that safe haven for children in that area has been taken away. So in general, I'm against the contract zone, like for what the reasons I said, and the negative impact of all the surrounding neighborhoods, not just White Birch Lane, but the neighborhoods that have been around for a long time and the current residents of those roads. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if anybody else wishes to speak, please step to the podium, state your name and address. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing.
Proposed order 24-137, order that the town council approve a contract zone for KV Enterprises for the Roby Street subdivision, map 24, lot 1920, map 25, lot 8, and map 27, lot 20, as follows.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading due to the length.
Okay, is there a
I
second?
would second that.
Okay, second. All those in favor of waiving the reading due to length? 5 yeas. Okay. Now a motion on the item, if we could. Anyone's interested? Okay, move. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Siegel. All right, Mr. Town Manager, do you want to give us an overview?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm going to call up Tom Poirier, our Community Development Director, because at some point I'll make a misstep, and Tom has been with us through the whole process.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Tom Poirier, Director of Community Development. So I think Owen's touched on it a little bit. So this first came to the council. I think the ordinance committee worked on the contract zone language, came back to the council. That language was forwarded to the planning board. Planning board reviewed it under a number of public hearings. They made some proposed amendments to the contract zone. Those changes are shown in the agenda item today. Actually, those shows changes made by the planning board and the town council, right? So there's been a lot of back and forth with the developer regarding additional language. So that's what's on for public hearing this evening. And I think myself and Owens here are answering any questions the board or the council has regarding that. So
Great, thank you. All right, questions for Tom while he's right there?
I have one.
Yes, Councilor Wilder-Cross.
Thank you. I'm wondering if you know whether a traffic study has ever been done, if it has been done yet?
no, so the traffic study and the traffic movement permit will be done as future phases. Part of the 40 units, they did do a traffic analysis. I wouldn't call that a study. That will be done as future phases as the development proceeds. That's just needed once you hit a certain threshold.
Okay, thank you for that answer.
Other questions? Councilor Siegel?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Poirier might have to stand back up there and stay, yeah.
Yeah, you might want to just stay up there, Tom.
I'll stand.
Thanks.
I'll have Owens come up in case there's a question.
So just to clarify with Councilor Wilder-Cross's question, if we allow the contract zone tonight, would they still be required to do a traffic study?
Yes, that does not go away as part of this.
Okay. And are you able to note the specific changes that the planning board made to the contract zone that we did not make?
Or would it be easier for you to note the ones that the council made?
The council changes they made, they added the fee for the infrastructure project for for school capacity. That was designated by the town council. I believe the protecting existing tree canopy to the greatest extent practical, that was a planning board. The development for White Birch Lane as part of phase 1 of the development, constructed traffic, I believe that was a planning board. The development transfer fee requirement, I believe that was planning board, just to clarify that section. The multifamily mixed use, that was a town council request. One of the more of the multifamily phase of the development for housing of older persons, that's a town council request. And then some of the other language clarifying what districts, that was a planning board.
Thank you. Another question, if that's okay. The point where it says construction traffic will be equally split between all points of access into the site. If we do not allow the contract zone tonight, that will not be a requirement then?
Correct.
Okay.
Other questions?
Yep, I guess I have one. Regarding the parcel that's going to be, that you're talking with the land trust, and these wooded path sections that we saw at the last meeting, will the public have access to those as well? Okay. Through an easement or?
So the land trust parcel is by nature public. The other points of access are some trails through the subdivision and sidewalks. Those are all public infrastructure, so those would be open to the public too.
Okay, great. But back to the prior, the land trust portion, will there be access points to that section of land?
Yes. there
For
will
the
be.
public?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, concerns, statements?
Yeah, I have a couple questions, and, it might be a combination of town staff and developers here. So this land is about 1,500 feet from the closest bus stop. Was there any conversation about trying to find ways to incentivize smaller dwelling units for folks that might be more interested in utilizing public transit?
I think there was definitely discussion regarding pedestrian connections. So the Roby sidewalk, what's best to locate there. I think as part of early discussions with the council, multi-use path was identified by Councilor Siegel. That was been added to the plan in the middle of the development. So there's always been this notion of connecting that development, or how best to connect that development regarding traffic, regarding pedestrian connections. I'll let the developer talk about the size of the units and parking and that kind of stuff, but I think pedestrian connections, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Owens McCullough again. So the bulk of this project, so there's 96 single family that's part of it and 295 multi-family units, apartments. And one of the goals was to create some diversity of housing and provide opportunity for increased housing, smaller sizes in there. And that is one of the premises of this whole contract zone process, so that this developer can actually build those multi-family housing units. So it's a big part of the project.
Thank you. And actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's, I think, one of the concerns here. We use the term multifamily housing. I think perhaps people have in their minds, these are 4-bedroom homes stacked on top of each other, 4 floors, and that would obviously overcrowd our schools. So I'm pleased to hear you say that there's a plan to have a diversity of housing. I just don't see any numbers in here that make me feel confident that we're actually going to get smaller dwelling units. So that's one thing. I'm not sure if there's ways for us to talk about that a little bit more, try to get some numbers in here so we can confidently say to the public, we're not stacking, multiple multifamily, 5, 6 family homes on top of each other in these multifamily buildings. I don't know, could you speak to that a little?
Sure. The conversation through the whole process has been apartments that would be 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. They would be multi-level. I think we have a height in the contract zone of up to 80 feet, so that might allow for 5 stories or so of apartments. These have always been talked about and intended to be rental units that would provide for that sort of housing need. I think that's an important mix as part of this whole project because single-family houses they would be market rate houses, but the apartments offer an opportunity for smaller units that would be less costly than owning a house. And what we see often, Mr. Mayette is here, he developed the Latitude in South Portland, and what they see in the Latitude is, I don't know if this is good or bad, but there's no families or kids that are in those apartments. What they're seeing is young professionals, they're seeing people with roommates that in it. Some of them work remote from other locations and they rent in it, but they see a different type of tenant mix in there. And we are looking to make at least one of these units. I call it 55 and older, but it's defined by the federal government, but it's basically 55 and older. At least one of those would be dedicated for housing. And in the contract zone, if it's appropriate, there is an allowance for the first 2 floors to be appropriate community-related retail or commercial business, maybe community-based kind of business. Maybe it's a gym, a hair salon, a tax account, who knows? But it's very appropriate to that location if it fits in it. But the focus has been these smaller apartments in there.
Thank you.
Vinny, is that accurate? Okay.
And I'm sorry, but you just mentioned one other point that I wanted to ask about the potential for the commercial space. My understanding of our existing growth management ordinance is if you were to build one of those multi-tenant units and add the commercial space, the dwelling units within that particular building would then be exempt from requiring a growth permit. Is that your understanding of the growth management ordinance?
I'm going to let Mr. Poirier answer that because he lives and breathes that daily. So.
Yeah, so as we discussed, so we do have an exemption and it's per development. So if, let's say one phase of the multifamilies came in and requested or had a mixed use component as part of it in one of the buildings, then that phase would be exempt from the growth management ordinance.
Thank you.
If I could expand, one of the key aspects that's written into the contract zone is we would be developing one phase of the multifamily at a time in a 24-month period. So it's managing the pace of development. But with the multifamily housing, if you have 12 and 20 or 24 unit housing and you use the growth permit process, they basically wouldn't be able to build the units because they couldn't occupy them. It makes no financial sense. So that's an important aspect of this contract zone that allows for that diversity of housing and to get those units built that are economical. Frankly, smaller units, vertical and a tighter footprint allow for better economics.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councilor Siegel?
Thank you very much. So just to clarify here, can we put numbers on these multi-units? How built out is that design? Can you tell us square footage?
Well, on the contract zone, it talks about square footage it's actually on the, I did bring this for a reason. So if you look at the, and I don't know if this plan has been submitted to the council in the packets in the past, but each of the buildings we've laid out does have a square footage for the buildings on
Sorry,
it.
square foot per unit.
Per unit?
Yeah, because
We
that's what we're
talked
talking
about that. We are targeting 1 and 2 bedroom units. Some may be a little smaller, some may be a little bigger. And I guess I would need the developer to speak to that, but the goal was not to say each unit could be a maximum of this size or a minimum of this size. Depending on the building configuration, when we get to the planning board, it may be opportune to have some units bigger than other units, smaller than sort of a variation across the board, and it will all depend on how the ultimate layout of each one of those phases works out. But the goal is to have relatively smaller units, 1 and 2 bedroom. It's expensive to build these buildings, so to build much larger units than you need is not in the developer's best interest from an economic standpoint. So there is a desire to keep them reasonable and that are marketable and functional for the tenants. Is that, would it be okay if Mr. Mayetta spoke, or?
Yeah,
Vinny, do you have anything to add to that, or are you good?
Thank you. My name's Vincent Matter. I'm a partner in KV Enterprises. The units 7 are going to be 600 to up to 1,000 square feet per unit. These buildings that you see on this drawing and the concept plan that we envisioned are 3-story buildings, similar to those in the area across the street from the Cabela's, if any of you are familiar with that project. So they're 3-story walk-ups. The units mostly are 1 and 2 bedrooms. I think there's 1 or 2, 3 bedrooms in each building of the larger building. But primarily 600, 650 for 1 bedrooms, 800 to 1,000 for 2 bedrooms. That's what we expect.
Okay. To Councilor Sims and to the rest of the council, I mean.
Yeah, just make sure you're using the mic.
Thank you. If you want those specific numbers in the contract zone, I think we can add that. And then I do want to address the rest of the council here to say, we can still make amendments to this thing, even if you aren't for the contract zone. If it does happen to pass, what would you like to see? I think we can, there's more we can push here if we'd like. I just want to open that up and be very clear that, yeah.
Are you asking to restrict bedrooms? Are you asking to restrict square footage? Are you looking for both? Or, I don't know, I've heard it both ways here. I mean, I guess for me, I'd hate to restrict square footage as much as I would bedrooms, if that's what you're talking about, but.
You're saying your preference would be to identify a number of bedrooms?
My preference would be to say, 2 bedrooms and possibly each unit could be allowed 1 3-bedroom or something. To that effect, I guess, if that's what the council's looking for. I'm not really making a suggestion. I'm just taking what everybody just said and trying to put it into one sentence here.
So I think that I think if this contract zone is done, I mean, the way what they're describing, these multi-tenant buildings of units of less than 1,000 square feet, we have data from Greater Portland Council of Governments, from other places. Those units will generate more property tax revenue for the town than it will cost us. And it's very unlikely that they will have school-age kids in them, which really helps address some of the concerns that have been raised by community members. So when folks are concerned, reasonably so, that this is going to negatively impact the community, I think if it's done well in the way they're describing, it could actually be a positive to the community, particularly from a financial standpoint. Now, there's obviously sort of a quality of life standpoint as well, but there could be a cool community business that goes into one of these that everybody ends up loving. And they're like, wow, Gorham really wasn't a place until we had this awesome cafe. So that's obviously best case scenario. But if we don't have a majority of support for this as it's currently laid out, I don't know, trying to negotiate specific numbers and stuff with the developer across the table right now at this meeting seems, that's not enough time. So, I mean, we could propose some suggested amendments and possibly consider tabling this. I don't know what people are willing to do, but I would prefer to see us keep this conversation going as opposed to seeing it fail, if that's something that, I don't know where the rest of the council stands, but I know that there's at least some potential that could happen when we take a vote. So,
All right, I see Tom Poyer has something to say here.
No, so just to go on.
No, you don't have something to say, or
Well, I'll answer. So we've had discussions with the town attorney before regarding whether it's bedrooms or square footage. The town attorney has advised us go with square footage. So if you're going to look to limit the size of a building, don't look at the bedrooms, look to square footage. So if it's under 1,000, 1,100, whatever the number is, you would look to that. Now, the other part I would suggest is if you are looking to put a limit on the percentage, allow flexibility for the developer to do a certain percentage above that, right? So maybe it's 80% of 1,000, and then 20% gives them flexibility because, again, the design and stuff we can work on, and the developer can speak to it, but even though it's three bedrooms does not mean that it's going to be located with families. I mean, we're seeing a lot of young professionals needing 3 people to pay for rents now, unfortunately, to live in southern Maine. And it's just a factor of economics, I think.
So I'll throw out there as a question to the developer at this time, but one of the amendments that I was considering suggesting here was in the contract zone language where it identifies that the developer will be able to have 15 growth permits a year. I was going to suggest amending that language to say the developer shall be allowed up to 15 growth permits per year, provided that at least 5 of those growth permits are granted only for dwelling units not to exceed 1,000 square feet. Would that be something that would be problematic to your design, or would that be something that could be workable?
Lou, that's a great question, but that refers to the single-family houses more than the apartment units.
Okay. So the idea is that the multifamily units are going to be able to use some of these exemptions in the growth management ordinance to not necessarily require the growth permits.
I think they may require the growth permits. I'm not sure about that, but I know that it's under a different context. We wouldn't be able to build any of the multis. We would do all single families for the whole property if we didn't have a zone change, because we can only get 10 building permits. So, if the units are 30 units, of course you can't even stockpile them for 3 years to get enough to build one building. So we'd have to go single family. Yeah. So the thing about the square footage, we have our architect that has designed a lot of wonderful, very habitable units of various sizes from, the high 5s up to 1,100 square feet. And they design them in these buildings to be efficient to construct so that we can afford to build them and actually have them cash flow, so they work. So to do too much restriction in that area, I can assure you, we don't want to build them 12 or 1,500 square feet because, they're just too expensive per square foot to build, and we wouldn't be able to get our rental return from them. The final thing I'd say on a few 3 units like Benny Devine built over there by Cabela's, a lot of people are working from home now is Zoom, so one ends up being an office.
Right.
In fact, even in many of our 2-bedrooms at Latitude, we lease 2 bedrooms to just one couple, and they have an office in their home as the other bedroom. So it's really a huge variety of different types of people and different types of housing, and I think it would be a good fit for Gorham. I really do, and I appreciate all your hard work to try to help us make it happen. Thank you.
Further discussion?
I have one
Councilor Waldencross.
question. Yeah, I was just thinking, when you mentioned 3-story walk-up kind of building, if we're going to be designing one of these buildings for senior citizens, I'm thinking walk-ups probably aren't going to be the best idea unless you can get some very agile senior citizens in there. Is it possible for you to consider putting an elevator in or not?
They're going to speak to it, but the elevator, but I want to answer Councilor Sims' question. So they will have to pay a growth permit for each phase. What this contract zone allows them is whatever phase that multifamily is, they're allowed to pay that growth permit for all the dwelling units allowed in that phase of multifamily. That's what they're getting with the contract zone.
Yes, so great question on the 55 and older. But all of these units won't be the same, right? So we're doing them in 5 different phases. So some may be 2-story, some may be 3-story, some may have elevators, some may not. So in the 55 and older, I'm almost 65, and I wouldn't mind, I could do 3 flights of stairs, but we would try to make those more friendly towards people that don't use stairs quite as much. So that would be just a different section. That's why we're saying, and Owens was rattling off all the things, but I picked up on, he said 1 unit would be 55. He meant 1 phase. So we're going to take a whole phase of the project and design homes that would be more appropriate, probably with elevators or some other useful help to encourage 55 and olders there.
Okay, I think most folks who are at that age are looking for one-level living, but if they have to go up 3 flights of stairs to get to their one level,
exactly,
kind of
that's
doesn't
right.
work so good.
Yeah, they do have. We do have there are a lot of people above the age of 55 living across from Cabela's and that are living on the 2nd and 3rd floor. But I completely agree with you. Virginia, I think if we did a neighborhood of 55 and older, we would more likely design a special looking building that had elevators and had more useful for that purpose.
Great, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Councilor Sims?
Yeah, I just have a question for the town manager. Do we, the way this works, so we got this in front of us tonight. Next month, a new council is created. If, for example, if this contract zone fails tonight, could it be brought back in a few months with a new council, or no? What's the rule there?
Thank you. The short answer would be yes. The more complicated answer would be there have to be public hearings and stuff like that. And I don't know what would have to go back to the planning board, if anything. But yes, a new council starts for your council rules as far as revisiting an item. If it were to fail, it starts when a new council is seated.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just want to make one more point that I appreciate all of the changes that have been suggested, but I am still going to be voting against this contract zone tonight. My main reason for that is the fact that the contractor wasn't able to create a construction access road. And when I think about all of the families, the established families in neighborhoods that are going to be significantly bothered by the construction traffic that's going to last over a number of years as we look at this long-term plan. And I think that there were other possibilities for getting in and out of that development with construction vehicles that I think were just pushed aside, and I'm very sad about that because I think we need this kind of development. I just think it could have been done in an easier way for the folks who already live there, and actually for the folks who are going to be living in the developed area. They're going to be putting up with a lot of construction traffic too. So I will be voting against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Owens? Do you have, okay, you jumped up like you had something to say, sorry.
No, I was just getting ready for questions.
All right. I do want to just say that Councillor Phillips is here now. She will be voting on this item, so she showed up in the discussion. She is able to vote, so I just wanted to make that announcement. So nobody be surprised when the vote comes up, that's all. Any further discussion on this? Suggestions?
Thank you,
Yeah,
Vice Chair.
just go. Yeah.
Phase 1 was approved, and it looks like the Phase 1 single-family homes are very similar to the other single-family homes that are going to be built. What is the square footage of the Phase 1 homes that were approved, roughly?
Those lots are about 8,500 to 9,000 square feet. There's a couple that are a little bit bigger, closer to 10,000 or so, but that's
And have the homes themselves been designed yet for those lots?
No, they haven't.
Okay.
They would fit, you know, we have parameters of the setbacks. They would be fit within those lots. I don't know, do you have a sense of what you're thinking for square footages of houses? 15. Go ahead.
We have a variety of houses that we built in Scarborough. If any of you have seen I'm sorry, I can't think of the name of it. But anyway, yeah, Layton Farm. The Layton Farm subdivision, they'd be a little bit smaller than those, but the average probably be 1,700 square feet. There'll be some 15, some 2,000, so I'd say about 1,800 average.
That it?
I'd like to make an amendment, offer an amendment for this motion to add the requirement for them to build a construction road off of Topin, or to work with that private way owner to do so, so that the construction can be offset, and then kind of remove that construction road after they're done, as that land is formally put into the land trust. I can word that better if need be.
I guess my question is, if we amend to do that, that's going to take them having discussions to be able to actually accomplish that. So if that's a suggestion, would we be better to table this tonight for them to be able to discuss that than for us to vote on something that might be actually impossible for them to do?
Yeah, that was also my question. Topin Road is a private drive.
Right.
And that landowner's not here tonight. And
Right, so for us to make a requirement to hook something to basically their driveway at this point.
I don't think it's fair to that landowner.
Thank you. If there's a general concern from the council on construction access and/or the potential, again, potential, for another entrance, I guess, or to look at alleviating construction traffic to the maximum extent possible, yes, I think the council could ask that, but you definitely need to provide more than, tonight to do that. So if that is the route that you want to go, I just recommend tabling that so that that conversation can take place, if that's something you really want to dive into. And I think Tom could, if the council is willing. I don't know if Tom wants to weigh in on that, as far as the logistics.
Staff would be happy to look at it with the developer, but I will caution there is significant limitations because there's wetlands, clearing, additional clearing that would need to be done in the Presumpscot Regional Land Trust, plus wetland impacts that I don't even think the DEP would let us do, even if they're temporary. So because that whole part of that parcel, if you're coming off New Portland Road, there's a stream and there's significant wetlands you get across. So I don't even, we can look at that. I don't think that's feasible, but there may be other parts that we're not looking at, but again, there are significant limitations to it.
So I'll point of order myself here. We should have actually he had a motion, we never had a second. So we're discussing something we never had a second on. My fault, sorry. So is there a second to Councillor Siegel's amendment? It's fine if you want to second it for discussion, it's just we need to do that to discuss, so.
Could you remind me what that amendment was at this point?
To make an access road to
make an access road.
Tobin Drive.
Okay.
I'm gonna start doing the Jeopardy music.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I want to do it directly connected to Topin Road. I would like to think that there's a little more space without, I don't know.
Can I withdraw my amendment?
Yeah, withdrawn.
I'd like to withdraw my
Thank you.
amendment. I'd like to make a motion for an amendment that they create some kind of other access for construction.
Investigate an access road. Investigate means for another access road, is what you're suggesting.
I would like them to, no, my amendment is to create another point of access for construction traffic if possible. There we go. That's what I like.
Okay.
I would second that one.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Now discussion on the amendment. Councillor Sims.
Well, I kind of like your suggestion of an amendment to investigate the possibility of putting another road in. But now what's before us is it would be added to the contract zone language to build another point of access if possible.
For construction traffic specifically, and then to be removed once the construction is done.
And I'm back to my original point of I don't know how we require something that could be physically impossible.
Sorry, so I said, that's why I ended with if possible.
Oh, correct, but to add it to the language to the contract zone if possible doesn't really. So this would be tabling?
Well, the reason, I guess two separate, but the reason that I did not like your language of investigate is I'm sure this developer would never ever do this, but it's, we investigated it, it won't work or it's too hard, so no. I want to, have it in there that if it is possible, they'll do it.
Okay, so if it's impossible, if the answer is it's impossible.
Yep.
Right.
The contract zone just moves forward with no.
Right. And who's the arbiter of whether or not it's possible?
DEP?
Yeah.
Up on semantics, I just don't know how this would work, that's all. I have no clue how
I don't
this
even know
would
how that
work.
would work.
So, go ahead, please, clarify this for me.
I'm not even sure how that would work, but from a reasonable standpoint, we've actually looked at other ways in and out of this property, and there has been conversation at the council level about that and at the planning board. We've talked about New Portland Road, we've talked about Tobin, which is a private way, but no matter what, if we go in any of those other directions, even if it was temporary, we've got wetland impacts, you got a lot of land clearing, a lot of grading. What are you going to do with drainage in the interim? And to restore it, it never comes back. It's never forested land again. So we picked coming in through the connection through the school property, which we came to the council and went to the planning board to provide additional points of access so that we would have opportunities to have more than one or 2 points of access for construction traffic and eventually vehicle traffic. But to build a temporary construction access, taking all those trees, going through the wetlands, I need DEP permits, I'd have to do alternatives analysis, and they're going to come back at me and say, is there another alternative? And we would say, yes, there is, and they would say, we're not going to give you the permit. And it's honestly, that's that direct and that simple around it. So we have looked at that a number of times in the past and had those conversations. I appreciate the conversation, but I think we settled, we tried to get to, we put a lot of work into that connection through the school property and White Birch Lane and the road for that. The developer's making, I dare say, 7 figures of investment to build that road up through there. So I just don't see how we would make something else happen in a different location.
Can I make a comment? It's just a little bit more general, but before we vote on this amendment, certainly the concerns of all of these abutters have to be taken into consideration. I do think that the developers they've updated the plans to try to accommodate a significant number of the abutter concerns that have been raised. I think the planning board has done extensive work on this one, and they've made some very sensible recommendations. Obviously the abutting homeowners we need to be concerned about. We also need to be concerned about the businesses in the village. I've talked to the businesses around the village. They're excited for this development because it's like hundreds of additional customers that they can have. And it turns out that most of the people that are driving down Main Street don't stop at the businesses. So they really need more customers that actually live down in the village. So this is really a way to help the businesses down in the village as well. A lot of them struggle just because there's not enough people down there. So I think if there's more that we can do to continue trying to get more of these abutter concerns addressed, I think we should keep trying to do it. I think that's why I'm going to propose that we table this after we vote on this amendment, because I think that we should keep working on this to find a way to make it work for everybody as best as possible, as opposed to voting it down tonight. I think that would be an unfortunate decision for us to make.
All right. So we have to vote on the amendment. Oh, Tom.
Really quickly, so I'm just going to give you the perspective of the planning board. So the planning board, like the council, heard extensive comments regarding traffic and construction traffic. They reviewed the plan for phase 1 extensively, even more looked at grading, clearing, all that as part of their review. If there was any ability to provide another way to connect construction traffic, the planning board would have conditioned it in a second. Unfortunately, they couldn't do it because of the regulations that were cited. It's just not possible. So the planning board looked at it in depth about how to best access the site, and then that's why that provision about the construction traffic has to be dissipated over all the public roads, right? Not one road is going to be taking the brunt of the construction traffic. If there was a way to do a new Portland Road connection, the planning board would condition it. I'm 100% sure of it.
Thank you. All right. So the amendment. Any more discussion on the amendment itself? Not anything outside the amendment, just the amendment. Okay. No more discussion. So.
Based on that information, it's something that I want, but it legitimately sounds like it can't happen. And so
Well, we have a motion and a second on it, so we
right.
should
No,
just vote on it here.
I'm discussing my own vote here, and so it might. I mean, I'm glad we got this information, and I wish it could work, but it sounds like it
I think you see which way your amendment's going at this point, yeah. So all those in favor of the amendment? None. Okay. So there we go. Back to the item. All right. So the item. Any more discussion on that? Councilor Sims, you had a suggestion.
I'd be happy to hear any other comment, but I'm going to make a motion to table this until next month so we can further discuss with the developer.
I guess if we're going to take that route, what are you looking for more information if that is the route that's going to be taken?
I think most specifically trying to be more specific about identifying. We've had a lot of very positive talk about these being smaller units. There's nothing in the contract zone language that says there needs to be some amount of smaller units. So that would be the thing that I'd like to see. And again, I know I don't want to phrase it in such a way that it completely restricts them from being able to do this thing in a sensible way. But I want us to be able to put some language in there so we can say to the residents, listen, we know that one of the concerns is overcrowding the schools. We're requiring smaller units to guarantee, to greatly increase the chances that we will not have school-age kids in these units. That's a big one right there. You know, and I personally would like to see us do more to try to find ways to incentivize some of these folks that are going to be living in these smaller units in particular to utilize public transit infrastructure in town. It's not that far, and they need less parking spaces and they add less traffic. So these are some of the things that people are bringing up. So I think we can keep working on it and make it better. I think there's a lot of work that's been done, obviously, and I think we should take that and keep working with it.
Okay, so now that we know the basis of that, is there a second on the motion? Seconded by Councilor Siegel. Any more, Councilor?
So I actually don't want to discuss the tabling, but if you don't mind, just because I haven't spoken yet.
Yeah.
So from the beginning, I'm not a fan of contract zones trying to go around our current zoning and our growth permits. That was the first step, but since then I supported the amendments to the contract zone, but I didn't support the contract zone itself, as I said, but I think if this is going to go forward, there's enough information in here. The things that I wanted to see in here was the impact fees, and also, you know, the multi-phase, the multifamily phase, no more than, you know, one can be constructed in 24 months. There are things in here I think that the planning board has suggested that are very good. But at the same time, I didn't support White Birch Lane as part of this because I wanted to see this development be its own self-serving development with one road in so that it was only residents using the road that would go in and out. Even if there were two roads or two access points, but I just think this is going to be a cut-through road. I just wanted to see it more self-contained so that it wasn't going to affect more people. So I've listening to all the discussion here tonight. I don't know what tabling would get us to. I don't have any more questions, so I don't know if other counselors do. So that's all I wanted to say.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to say, I mean, how many meetings did you have with the planning board to get to this point? I think it's all been hashed out, and I think tabling it one more month, what is that going to get us? I guess one question I do have is the next phases, can it be more delineated at the planning level of the size of these units?
Tom?
Yes, Robert, that's a really good point. If we get the zone change, then we can task the design and actually provide staff with a building plan. We didn't expend the money with the architects to design exact building plans, but I can tell you, I own a lot of apartments, and they're generally in the sizes that I'm describing to you. It would be a bad business move to make large 1,500 square foot apartments because it wouldn't be financially feasible. So we'd really appreciate a vote tonight. I mean, I know it's really hard and there's a lot of things to consider, but we are going to go, every single part of this has to go through the planning board each time, each phase, and we're prepared to go forward and do a good job, and we really appreciate the opportunity to let us move forward tonight.
Mr. Mieta, one more question for you. Sure. Just for the public, when did you first approach the town with this project?
I think it's been 30 months ago, I think.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion. Oh.
Looks like Tom wants to add something.
Oh,
And
Tom,
I'll just speak
you
to
just
it
keep
quickly.
sneaking out of the darkness
Yeah, I
here.
know. So I'll just speak to yes, the planning board is going to have extensive review of the buildings, parking, stormwater, landscaping, all that will come out as part of the planning board review of each phase for the multifamily as well as the next phases for single family. So yeah, we have a concept plan, but it's early on in that review process. There will be multiple changes that will happen.
I don't know.
All right, so we had a motion, an amendment to table for more information was the amendment, correct? It wasn't actually a motion. Or was it a motion to table?
Yeah, there was.
Okay.
I think it was a motion to table
Okay.
yeah.
So, and it was seconded, so I guess we'll move on to the vote on that.
So I seconded it because I've noticed in all these discussions, honestly, Councillor Sims hasn't been here for them. And so this is, I believe this is your first time, voting on this, which also goes to show the length of this. When I first saw this project, I was on a different committee. But also, it sounds like he has a very reasonable and very specific things that he'd like to achieve in 1 month, and then, and then we can put this hopefully behind us. But I think he was very clear in what the information and what he'd like to seek out of it. So it seems reasonable to allow for the table. I realize it does belabor it. I realize that we want to put it behind us, but why not just make sure we've done it totally right?
Councillor Phillips?
I have some concerns with that because then we're going to be starting out with 2 new counselors that are going to need an explanation, and they're probably going to want to table it until they get up to speed with what we're talking about. So I have some concerns with that part of it, but.
Time to vote.
Yep. All right, so we had a motion to table. All those in favor of the motion to table? 2. All those opposed? 4. Fails. All right, any more discussion on the actual item itself here?
Time to vote.
I just have one more comment. I guess what makes this a tough decision is it's either going to be all single-family homes or apartments, and I guess that's our decision tonight, is we're either, if you're not voting for the contract zone, then we're supporting single-family homes, a lot of them, or we're supporting apartments and maybe not as many kids and things like that, and then, the 55 plus, and then commercial spaces. So I guess I just wanted to say that for the public, just so that they know what basically our choice is here tonight, so.
That's actually, thank you so much for clarifying that. And so that without the contract zone, it's all single-family homes, or at least for now. Maybe there's a different conversation that happens after the fact. If we have the contract zone, we get some of these multifamilies that are going to be smaller units. And I will just reiterate one time, I know, again, a lot of folks are like, say they want more commercial, they want more businesses, so we can get more property tax revenue from businesses that don't add kids to the school. Something I continue trying to remind people, businesses don't just magically appear here in Gorham because we're tired of our taxes going up. They go where there are market opportunities, and that means they go where there are people that can be their customers and that can work for them. So you put in some housing like this, you actually have the potential to sustain more businesses in and around the village. So I'll stop talking now and we can vote on it.
Great discussion. With that said, if there's no more comments, questions, concerns, amendments, or iterations, okay. We'll move to the vote. All those in favor? 4. All those opposed? 2. Passes. And with that, I will be turning the meeting back over to Councillor Phillips. I don't know if anyone needs a 5-minute break
Oh,
here.
I think
but-
we're good. Thank you for taking care of the meeting. I apologize for being late. Item 2024-9-13, action to amend the Chicoine contract zone for properties at map 15, lots 25-1 and 24.203, Councilor Phillips sponsored. Proposed order 24-138, ordered that the town council forwards to the planning board for public hearing and review, amending the contract zone for the purpose of adding an additional property to the contract zone located on map 15, lots 25-1 and 24.203, owned by Ryan Ciccone. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? I'll second it for discussion. So this was brought up last month, and I apologize, there was miscommunication between myself and Mr. Ciccone. And so he's here now to attend the meeting. I'm going to turn it over to him, and the other landowner that he wants to include in his contract zone is here as well. So Ryan, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, hi, good evening. My name is Ryan Ciccone. We're trying to amend our contract zone for one lot for my neighbor, Rudy Alquist. We're trying to build this business that we talked about with a wedding venue and everything else we're trying to do. And I've had the fortunate help of Rudy being phenomenal on my end to move this forward with a lot of manual work and everything else that we're doing. And what I'm trying to do is amend so I can make so that he can get one house lot out of his house lot by shrinking it to the amended thing that we had prior to, which is 40,000 square feet instead of 60,000 square feet. So that's what I'm trying to do, is just amend one lot, which is his house lot, to be part of our house lots.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I think I was one of the catalysts on this getting tabled last time, was just, all I needed was like a head nod or a yes from the landowner at that point, just because you were basically saying, yes, he wants to be part of it, but we'd never heard anything saying yes or no. So looks like he's right there.
Yes, this is Rudy Alquist over here.
Yeah. Okay, we got a head nod and a yes is what I saw there.
That
So
helps a lot.
yes. So, I mean, really, that was the only thing holding me up, was just that we didn't know that there was actually landowner permission to include it in that zone. So.
Any other questions?
Well, the purpose of amending this is to allow for another residential house.
One residential house in the front off County Road and Small Pond Road, right in the corner there.
Go ahead.
Anticipate any further subdivisions of this lot into additional houses?
No, well, we have in the contract zone that we had already prior done, we're doing 5 house lots on that were already in the contract zone. This would add for one additional one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Comments? All right. All those in favor? 6 yeas. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Item 2024-10-7, action to consider sending to the Ordinance Committee a request to amend the contract zone of Carroll Wood, Tax Map 6, Lot 14, Council Wildacross sponsored. Proposed Order 24-139, order that the Town Council forwards to the Ordinance Committee a concept of amending the contract zone of Carroll Wood, Map 6, Lot 14, to allow for multi-single-family residential dwelling units. Is there a motion? Motion by Councilor Wildacross. Is there a second? I'll second the item for discussion, since we have a bunch of information and the people are here tonight. All right, so Councilor Wildacross, I don't know if you want to talk about this or if you want to ask somebody.
I do. I
Okay.
do have something to say.
Okay.
After I asked to have this on our agenda for tonight, I learned that that property, according to our comprehensive plan, would not allow the kind of development that's being requested here. And so if I had understood that clearly before this agenda was put together, I believe I would not have put it on the agenda until there was a change in the comprehensive plan, which isn't going to happen for a few years. I am all in favor of trying to develop this kind of housing for seniors and singles that want a small home. But as I understand it, as was explained to me, it can't happen here. So I wouldn't be able to vote in favor of it.
Any other thoughts, comments? All right, we'll go right to the vote. Do you want to ask anybody to speak, or no?
Well, I guess perhaps Tom Poria could explain for those who don't understand this restriction, so that they would maybe better understand what's going on here, better than I understood last week.
Thank you.
Good evening, Tom Poirier, Director of Community Development. So as part of the contract, as part of the comprehensive plan for this area of South Gorham Corridor Commercial, single-family residential units are only allowed as part of a mixed-use development. So think of like a large scale of commercial in the front and then residential back, but there needs to be a substantial amount of commercial development. And I can give you an example. So the Hanson contract zone, if you think of the gas station, Mercy Hospital, the daycare, there's another commercial lot there. There's multiple lots there that are commercial. A couple of his lots are going through the process for single-family dwellings. And then there are other lots that have to do mixed use. So there needs to be substantial mixed use as part of any allowance of single-family dwelling units. And so any contract zone would need to be consistent with that.
Thank you for the explanation. Thank you for the explanation.
Are you all set? Okay. All right. We'll go to the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? 6 opposed. Item 2024-10-8, action to consider instructing staff to draft a charter amendment that allows for an automatic recount provision. Councilor Pratt, sponsor. Proposed order 24-140, ordered that the town council instructs the town manager to work with the town's legal counsel to draft a charter amendment that would allow for an automatic recount provision for local elections, referendums, and school budget validation votes. And be it further ordered that the town manager shall bring the draft language back to the town council for further review and consideration. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilor Wilder Cross.
All right, so as we saw at the last election, when something passes by a slim margin or fails by a slim margin, there's a recount provision, but it requires 100 signatures and just seems like kind of a dog and pony show for me to be able to trigger a recount. So what I said is, why are we doing this, basically? So what my recommendation is, with the help of staff, is to send this to ordinance to come up with the percentages. So whether it's 1% of, if it passes or fails by 1% of the vote, 2% of the vote, whatever ordinance comes up with for a percentage point, basically that would just automatically trigger a recount instead of going through the 100 vote or 100 signature process, basically. Because I think it's important to be able to do that recount, because as we know, sometimes numbers can be off just a little bit. So, and that's no fault of anyone, it's the process. So
It would expedite it as well.
correct, it would just make it happen automatically instead of by having to do something special, basically.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I like the idea of percentage for the ordinance committee, whoever's on it.
Right.
Because off presidential year elections, there's less voters, so a percentage just kind of makes it fair for all cycles.
I think through you, are you taking back over? Through you, Chair, to the town manager. A charter amendment, does that have to go to voters? Is that just us? What is the process of a charter amendment?
Thank you. And before I answer the question, when I wrote this order, I did not write it to send it to the ordinance committee. The council can easily send it to the ordinance committee. That can be done to get the input. A charter amendment or revision has to be reviewed by legal counsel. They have to provide an opinion on it. This would be an amendment. It wouldn't be a revision. Revision requires a charter commission. But it comes back, council has to vote on it, you have to hold public hearings, and then it has to go to the voters. Then there's a minimum, a certain percentage in the last gubernatorial election has to vote on it and approve it. We've done this since I've been here for a couple items in the charter. So it's not a huge lift, but it takes a while to do it. And it's something, whenever you modify the charter, I would highly recommend we take our time as a town, because it's the town's governing structure. This isn't an ordinance that you can easily change again if you make a mistake. So, but there's definitely examples that are out there of other municipalities that have these provisions that clarify not only the number not how the recount is conducted, by the ballot clerks, but how you ask for it. And I think everybody in the last school budget vote, a lot of people just assumed it would happen, and that there's not a clear state process that governs that. You have to reach out into state law and pull it from other places.
Okay. For our current process, the parties that come forward, that fill out the signatures, is there a cost associated?
Thank you. Lori can correct me if I'm wrong. To ask for a recount, no, there's not a cost. There is a cost for the municipality to conduct the recount, and probably something that should be taken into account when coming up with that threshold. And that's where I think we should lean on other municipalities and see what's out there, because we're not the only municipality that's dealt with this, but you don't want it to be such a high margin that we're having recounts all the time. And then the question, we don't know what's going on with an election. When I'm sure there's data out there, but there can be variation in the scanners picking up minute differences, but it doesn't equate to a massive amount of votes. And then we saw that in the school budget validation. So roundabout way of answering your question, there is a cost, and I think we should be mindful of it.
Okay. Councilor Pratt, were you envisioning this to replace the current structure?
Correct.
Be in addition?
In addition, well, it would replace, because you wouldn't need 100 signatures anymore. Basically, it would be an automatic recount provision.
But so
that would replace.
If something were, for instance, over whatever percentage we decide, no one would still be able to go for a recount, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think that would be up to the ordinance committee to decide whether signatures could still trigger a recount or not at that point.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't mean to.
No, yeah, jump in the middle here, please.
We cannot preempt state law. So if at any point there is a state statute that says that a recount happens for X reason or a certain percentage, we need to abide by that. Where I think we're focusing is that gray area that is not as applicable. So the recount provision for a school budget validation vote really is pulled from a section of state law that is meant for candidates. So that's why it's not great. It's meant for one candidate challenges another candidate and they call for a recount. The state law is not clear. Maybe someday it will be clear, but I think we're trying to fill in the missing pieces. More correctly, an attorney is trying to fill in the missing
No,
pieces.
and I'm using the last election as for instance. I mean, obviously, if that had gone the other way, this would have given the other party the opportunity for a recount as well. You know what I mean? This isn't me saying that something went wrong. I'm saying it would just streamline the process, basically, at the end of the day.
My one last question is, with the current process, we have petitioners, and then we have, counter petitioners, and there's two groups that look at it. If it's automatic, how do we end up deciding?
That process wouldn't change.
Right.
Likely it would change, and to answer your question 100%, I don't know, and that's where the attorneys come into play. In a perfect world, and the town clerk and I have talked about this pretty extensively, if we could just do a recount and it's just done by the ballot staff that we actually have, and there's no opposing parties, it's probably going to instill more trust in the system. It's just going to be handled by the ballot clerks we have. Obviously, people can be involved, and it's a public process, but just to make it automatic with the people we have would probably be a leap forward.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was confused at your question when you asked it. So I thought you were saying, would there still be checks and balances, basically? Yes, 100% by doing that. You were saying petitioner, counter, I got you now. So, yeah, opposition. Position, yes.
Thank you to the rest of the council for entertaining all of my questions. Yeah.
So, Lori, people could still come and watch the recount. Okay. It's still open to the public and things like that. Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. All those in favor? Yeas. Item 2024 4-2, action to consider adopting new wastewater rates, Finance Committee sponsored. Proposed Order 24-141, ordered that the Town Council adopts new wastewater rates according to the following schedule effective January 1st, 2025. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Second by Councilor Weiler Cross. All right.
Yeah, I'll take it, and Ephraim, please or interrupt me if I get anything wrong. Finance Committee was tasked with taking a look at these rates. We're under. We basically reset the formula so that we can have like a little bit in the bank and also be more current with our surrounding communities. Last time this was done is 2020, and prior to that, it was over 10 years ago. So we're just trying to get on a level playing field with everybody else.
Thank you. The only thing I would add is the council doesn't just set these rates to collect money. We get an assessment from the Portland Water District to handle our wastewater collection. So we need to cover that assessment, and really that's the driving force. It's not to increase the town's coffers or anything like that. Right now we're running a deficit. So we have a surplus with the Portland Water District that is running. It will run down over time. We need to replenish that to cover that cost.
Just a couple clarifying questions for the public and for myself so I can explain this. So I'm on public water here in Gorham. So this is changing my rate?
This is changing only wastewater.
Okay. This is just for wastewater.
Yeah. So if you're on public sewer, this would, effective January 1, change your rates.
So everyone on public sewer?
Yes.
All of the houses, all of the businesses? Okay, cool. So every municipality that works with public water, Portland Water District, has a different rate?
Correct.
And that rate is based on?
It's based on them needing to cover their assessment from the Portland Water District.
Okay.
So I believe the Finance Committee was provided with other rates, but the variables involved, like you could look at Portland, the amount of rate users, or even Westbrook compared to Gorham.
Right.
So it's really hard to compare an apples to apples.
Yeah.
What you can compare and get a rough grasp on is kind of what people are paying out of pocket. But again, you have to cover the cost of your system and treating your wastewater.
Generally speaking, the further out you have to build more pipe, and the fewer users you have, the more expensive it is for every user, correct?
Yes, it's just there's more bang for the buck. You still have to treat the wastewater, so you generate more wastewater, and there's more cost at the plant, and so on and so forth. But the more users you have on a system, the more revenue to cover these expenses. So if there's higher density in a area that has public utilities, if they're not generating a ton of extra wastewater, but they're paying into the base rates, it is generally a net positive for the system.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor? 6 yeas. Item 2024-10-9, action to consider authorizing a special revenue account for Roby Park, Finance Committee sponsored. Proposed Order 24-142, order that the town manager is authorized to establish a separate interest-bearing account for donations and special revenue for Roby Park, and be it further ordered that the town manager is authorized to accept donations towards Roby Park.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
All right, I'll second it. Okay.
Yeah, so this one was brought to us as well. Basically, it's a housekeeping item. We discussed what happens if we get a donation from a private entity, a business that specifically this entity wants the funds to go specifically to Roby Park. And basic accounting, we needed a line item within the town budget to put it, and that's what we're doing here tonight. Pretty straightforward.
So this is where the donations of money for memorial trees will go, or something like that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other comments? All
Great
right.
synopsis. Good job.
All those in favor?
Yay.
Yeas. Item 2023-6-7, action to consider accepting the Capital Improvements Committee's recommendation to start the process to formally discontinue Bragdon Road and Carl Lane, Capital Improvements Committee sponsor. Proposed Order 24-143, order that the Town Council authorizes staff to start the public notification process on the discontinuance of Bragdon Road and Carl Lane, And be it further ordered that the town council will determine if a public easement is to be retained and define any award damages, if any, after a one-year waiting period has expired.
Is there a motion? Motion by Counselor Siegel, all right. Second by?
I'll second.
All right, by Counselor LaVoy. I don't know, I know that Counselor Gagnon not here. I don't know if Counselor Sims wants to speak to this or just have the town manager talk about the process.
Yeah. Councilor Wilder Cross was there too.
Or you, yep.
I'd like the town manager to speak to this, please.
Pass it around.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So back in, actually, I can see by the date on it, last year, the town council forwarded to the Capital Improvements Committee a task of looking at roads in Gorham that could be considered for discontinuance based on use, access to one property, old gravel roads, so on and so forth. So the committee eventually took it up. Public Works had done a lot of research. There's about a dozen roads that I think will be brought forward. These were the first two to come before the committee, both serving, I believe, one residence, no real public access. And again, these are roads that the town has either maintained. Ownership could be in question, but we've been maintaining them for a long time, to some extent, providing winter maintenance. There's a discontinuance statute. The provision for the municipality, if there's not another public access, is to have a year-long process. You provide notification to all the abutters, any interested parties, and then at the end of that process, the council makes a determination: are you going to keep the road as is? Are you going to discontinue it? And if you do discontinue it, are you going to retain a public easement if that's been clarified that we could do that? And that happens a year from now. So if you want to start the discontinuance process on the two roads that were first recommended by Public Works, and again, there's about a dozen, it starts now. You will not take action on this for another year.
Okay, so this is not actually
You are
tomorrow
not, there's no
discontinuing
vote
the
tonight
road?
to discontinue any road. There's an abandonment process. It's a different process. But I did call the town attorney today just to clarify if there's questions on it during that review process and public input. There'll be a public hearing at the end, public input and notification process. A lot of these things can be clarified, but a discontinuance basically just severs the town's ties for that road.
Okay, so I've been part of some of these discussions when we started them on the Capital Improvements Committee a year ago or whatever. So I think this is one of those things that I talked about, either if we're requiring people, I guess if we're requiring certain road standards to accept a public road, we're requiring, you know, a turnaround at the end for snowplows, fire trucks, and a certain right-of-way width and things like that. A lot of these roads aren't like that right now. So I guess if we do this discontinuation process, throughout that process, I would like to see the option of either the landowners around or on at the end of the lanes or the roads have the option to have the road be brought up to town standards with the turnaround and with the right-of-way and maybe be built out. And then keeping them as a town road would be an option. Or obviously, some of these people may prefer that it be discontinued. So, but I think that it's worth looking at, and I just want to remind everybody that we're not doing that right now. We're just looking at these roads for discontinuance. So it's just starting the process, and we could find out things throughout the process.
So this
that
is
change.
consideration, more or less, right? I mean, we're starting a process, but the process could say, no, we don't want to discontinue this at the end. Is that correct?
That's correct. So you are basically setting a process that, so if you approve this tonight, the first meeting in October, we're going to have a vote of the town council after the notification and all that stuff of whether or not to discontinue the roads in question. So it's entirely up to the council 1 year from now what happens. Okay. I can't predict that. The council at the time might say, we don't want to discontinue any road, or we want to discontinue every road that's brought before us, or we want to offer conditions.
Mm-hmm.
That could be an option for the council as well.
Wow. Any other comments? Questions?
Is there any
Yeah, do we want to, I know we got an email from one of the landowners, and then it looks like one of them might be here. Can we hear from them?
You can invite
Yeah,
someone to speak from the public, yeah?
I'd like to see that, yeah.
Someone, yep.
Hi, that was kind of from me. Hi, I'm Allegra McNeely Kermani. I actually don't live at 20 Carr Lane. I would, except that unfortunately the property is under litigation. My parents died in 2020, and there's 5 of us, and it's a difficult situation. Let's just say that right now. But yes, I grew up there. And this is my brother Arthur. We both longtime residents of Gorham, even though I am not currently a resident. And yes, my concern is, I actually had a lot of questions. That's kind of why I came here, and I'm glad you kind of answered some of those during the process. But of course, it was very alarming to us, and it devalues the property if we don't have as much. We have a farm, or my parents had a farm on Carr Lane in northern Gorham, and yes, and then Owens McCullough, who was here earlier, said like, oh, there's a compensation that's due to you if your property value is lowered, and we actually help maintain it's a dirt road. We help maintain the dirt part of it and the gravel part of it, and we'd be happy to continue like the summer maintenance if you guys want to do like the plowing in the winter, and we do have a turnaround and all that. So I'm hoping that it can remain a town road as it has for like the 55 years of my life and longer before that. I'm glad to hear that it's a long process and that we'll have time to get into it. So I basically had some questions, but I did want to say that, like, if you have to compensate all these people for the loss of their value, maybe it would be cheaper to just keep plowing the road. And that's kind of where my thought process was. But I'm glad to hear that it's a process and we're not making any decisions tonight, because we just found out about it on Sunday, and it was a very big shock to us. So.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you.
Did you want to make any comments, Arthur? This is my brother Arthur, who's he's actually a farm. So it has been a working farm up until it's under litigation, and he's a professional farmer, and it's a Christmas tree farm, and he can.
Hi, so I'm Art McNeely, and I farmed that land for 30-something years, and I still farm now. I do a lot of land for Shaw Brothers, as Lee knows, but. No, I just would like the access continue, just because there's a lot of road frontage, and that would devalue the farm quite a bit if you take that road away. And I've maintained it, with my dad, and over time in the summers, graded it ourselves where the town hasn't done that. They've done it, but we've done that as well. And so I'm just asking that under consideration. And I came here, I didn't know the process, and so that's kind of what I would like to be filled in on the whole process and the thought process behind every step. And like I said, we just found out Sunday, so it was a shock. So, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
So Councillor Phillips, with that said, with the Shaw Brothers nod there, I will disclose that I work at Shaw Brothers. Mr. Art McNeil does hay the fields, but I receive no compensation from that, nor does it financially impact me whatsoever. So I just wanted to disclose that. I don't think I need a vote on it, but I just figured I'd let everybody know.
All right, thank you.
Why are these first two coming to us, if there's about a dozen?
I think there was a, lack of a better term, a priority list. I wouldn't say it's like these two roads are higher priority than any other road. Some of the other roads require a lot more research than these two roads as well. I mean, we have roads in the village. We don't even know who owns them, the village, and it's more complicated. Some of the records, you can know when any property refers to an oak tree and somebody used to have a shack, so you're going back 100, 150 years in some cases. So there's more legal research. I also did not want to commit legal time on 10 or 12 roads at a whack. I wanted to see what the appetite for the council was and not inundate you with a dozen road discontinuances now and a year from now.
Got it. Okay.
So I would also echo the fact that there's a lot of research. I combed through records trying to find anything that the Historical Society has, and it was just like the town manager said, it was, to the left of the oak tree, 50 rods this way and 10 this way. So so there are some, these were the ones that had less questions, I guess, is from the research that we kind of did, was they had less questions about who owned to where and where the right-of-way is and things like that, so. So yeah, I guess just for the McNeelys that are here and for the public, just by starting this process, we're just going through what state statute requires. And I don't know, might be a good time to revisit that workshop we had about road discontinuance, because I'm not sure that everybody was here for that. We did talk about the steps that you have to go through. So it's not a done deal. It's just something that we're looking at to see how we can, either take care of these roads or maybe not. So that's what we're just looking at now. So there'll be plenty of public input and things like that. So any other questions? All right. All those in favor? 5 yeas. All those opposed? Councilor Pratt.
Item 2024-10-10, action to consider endorsing a regional request between the municipalities of Gorham, Westbrook, and Wyndham for the designation of the Mountain Division right-of-way from a rail and trail right-of-way to a trail unit rail system, administrative sponsored. Proposed Order 24-144, ordered that the Town Council authorizes the Town Manager to execute a joint request to the MDOT to designate the Mountain Division Rail Network right-of-way as a trail unit rail system from Westbrook into Wyndham, linking to the existing trail network in South Wyndham through Gorham and into Standish.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Councilor
I'll
LeBoy,
second it.
second by Councilor Wilder Cross. All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be perfectly honest, I am not the subject matter expert. Tom is, but what this is doing, to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, is we're signing on board with an endorsement or a request to DOT to fund and/or designate the sections of the trail in Wyndham and Westbrook that cannot accommodate, or excuse me, the section as a railway that cannot accommodate a trail next to it.
Correct. So the sections of trail north of the Mountain Division Trail in Standish is basically they're looking at designating a trail until rail. And then Westbrook through Wyndham went through a design process to keep the rail and do a trail. The cost became extraordinary. How about that? There we go, extraordinary. It's been a long night. So extraordinary. So what's happening is Westbrook Wyndham is looking to do the same thing Standish has done. When they went forward to DOT for that request, DOT had said, we want to loop Gorham into it. So we looked at it. We don't see an issue with it. It probably gives us more flexibility to do other things on the trail where the rail bed is currently. So it gives us more ability to do more trail stuff there in that corridor. And that's what it is, just allowing Ephraim to sign off on that letter.
Any other questions?
So that's, I'm sorry, I guess I missed this part. So that's removing rail beds, putting trail in, or keeping both in, or doing both, I guess, is.
My guess is they're going to remove the rail.
Right.
DOT will remove the rail and then take those funds and utilize it for rail someplace else. It's nothing that we get to keep,
Right.
but I think it just gives DOT the flexibility to reclaim that rail
Yeah.
bed.
No, it's just really expensive to put new rail in, whereas if it's existing, you know what I mean? Like, that's my only adhesion to this, I guess, or whatever word I'm looking for.
And remember, this is just a letter to the Commissioner of DOT saying we support that decision. The decision is going to be made by the Commissioner of DOT.
All right. All those in favor? 5 yeas. All those opposed? One.
Sorry. Wah, wah.
just your, yeah, it's no night. All right, so,
Chair, for motion to adjourn.
oh, you aren't going to let them do it?
Let's let them do it. Let's let them do it.
A real jerk move, just so you know.
That is.
No, you did it. That's fine. Go for it.
I'd like to
Yeah.
withdraw my motion.
Okay, all right.
We second it.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you-
second.
Okay, so they would like to do a motion.
Third
to
it. Let's
adjourn.
third one.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor? 6 yeas. Thank you.